Have you ever met someone who proudly says, "I'm a millionaire because my house is worth $1 million"? Sounds impressive, right? But let me ask you a question. If that person needed $50,000 tomorrow, could they actually pull it out of their pocket? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that's the exact problem we're going to talk about today. The house-rich, cash-poor trap that so many people in America are stuck in without even realizing it. Here's the hook. Being called a millionaire doesn't always mean you're financially free. In fact, it could mean the opposite. It might just mean you're trapped inside four walls with no money to live the life you truly want. And yet, society has sold us this idea that the moment you own an expensive home, you've made it. But have you really? Or are you just one mortgage payment away from losing it all? Let's break this down in the simplest way possible. Net worth is often seen as the ultimate scoreboard. Add up everything you own, subtract everything you owe, and boom, that's your net worth. But here's the twist. Most of that number is tied up in one big, shiny asset, your home. And while it looks great on paper, you can't swipe your house at the grocery store. You can't pull equity out of your living room walls when the car breaks down or when your kid's tuition bill comes due. So yes, you may look wealthy on paper, but in day-to-day life, you could be struggling more than you admit. This is where the phrase house rich, cash poor comes into play. It basically means that while you might own an expensive home, your liquid money, your actual cash, savings, and investable assets are tiny compared to your expenses. You're living in a castle, but you can't afford the feast. You're driving past the finish line in a shiny car, but the fuel tank is empty. That's the silent trap. Now, why do people fall into this trap in the first place? Part of it is pride. Owning a home has long been seen as the American dream. It's a symbol of success. People stretch their budgets to the breaking point just to get that bigger house in that nicer neighborhood, because it makes them feel like they finally arrived. But here's the problem with that mindset. If most of your wealth is tied up in your house, then your financial freedom is an illusion. You're chained to a lifestyle that you can't easily sustain. Think about it. What good is $1 million home if you're constantly stressing about paying property taxes, fixing the roof, or keeping up with the neighbors who just added a pool? It's like buying a Ferrari when you can barely afford the fuel. Sure, it looks great on Instagram, but behind the scenes, you're sweating every bill. Here's a reality check. In America, surveys often show that a large percentage of millionaires' net worth is tied up in their primary residence. That means their wealth isn't liquid, it's stuck in bricks and drywall. And while that home may appreciate over time, you can't live off appreciation alone. You need cash flow. You need assets that actually produce money, not just look impressive when you log into a bank app. This is where so many people confuse net worth with freedom. Net worth is like a resume. It looks good on paper, but what really matters is how much you can actually spend, invest, and grow without running out of money. Having a high net worth that's locked away in a house is like having a fridge full of food but no electricity to cook it. It's technically wealth, but practically, it doesn't feed you. So what does this mean for the everyday person? It means that the path to financial independence is not just about chasing net worth. It's about building liquid assets. Assets that can cover your bills, fund your dreams, and let you sleep peacefully at night. That's why so many people chasing the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early, stress the importance of passive income streams, not just owning stuff. But let's bring it closer to home. Let's say you bought a $900,000 house with a $700,000 mortgage. On paper, people will say, "Wow, you're rich." But if you're spending every paycheck on mortgage payments, property tax, and insurance, then what's left over? Maybe nothing. And if an emergency comes up, you're scrambling. That's not freedom. That's financial slavery disguised as success. And here's the painful part. Society doesn't see this. They see the big house, the nice neighborhood, the car in the driveway, and they assume you're doing amazing. But inside the house, you're worrying about the next bill. You're wondering how to stretch your paycheck to cover everything. You're counting down the days to the next payday, like someone living hand to mouth. Only difference is, instead of a tiny apartment, you're trapped in a mansion. That's the paradox of being house rich and cash poor. Now, I know what you might be thinking, But houses appreciate. Doesn't that make them a good investment? Sure, real estate can grow in value over time. But here's the thing. Your primary residence is not really an investment in the way people think. An investment puts money in your pocket. Your home takes money out. Between mortgage interest, repairs, property taxes, and maintenance, your house is more like a giant ATM that you keep feeding instead of withdrawing from. Unless you rent out part of it or sell it for a profit, it's not creating cash flow. It's just sitting there, making you look wealthy while draining your wallet. Let me share an analogy. Owning a big home without cash flow is like being a king with a massive kingdom but no gold in the treasury. Everyone bows to your castle, but when war comes or famine strikes, you've got nothing to defend yourself with. You look powerful, but you're actually vulnerable. And that's exactly what happens when people chase home ownership as their main path to wealth. They put all their eggs in one brick-and-mortar basket and they end up stuck. So what's the alternative? Does this mean owning a home is bad? Not at all. Owning a home can give you stability, security, and even growth in equity. But it should never be the only thing you rely on. True wealth comes from a balance: cash, investments, passive income, and yes, assets like real estate. But when the house takes center stage, the financial picture is dangerously unbalanced. The first step to breaking out of this trap is awareness, realizing that net worth is not the same as financial freedom, that the number on paper doesn't matter if you're still stressed about bills, that having $1 million home doesn't mean you can retire, travel, or live the life you want. What matters is liquidity. What matters is cash flow. What matters is freedom of choice. And let's be real, most people don't want to be millionaires for the title. They want the life they think comes with it: freedom, travel, peace of mind, security for their family. And guess what? That life doesn't come from having a giant house. It comes from having money that works for you, even while you sleep. So as we continue in this video, we're going to peel back the layers of this illusion even further. We'll talk about how this trap keeps people stuck, why financial literacy is the real key, and how you can start building wealth that actually lasts. Wealth that gives you options, not just walls to live inside. Because here's the truth. You don't want to be house rich. You want to be life rich. And that starts with understanding the difference between fake wealth and real wealth. So now that we've pulled back the curtain on the illusion of being house rich, let's dive deeper into why this trap is so dangerous and why so many people fall for it without even noticing. Let me ask you this. Have you ever upgraded something in your life only to find that your expenses mysteriously grew right along with it? You get a raise, but suddenly you're spending more on dinners, gadgets, vacations. That's called lifestyle inflation. And when it combines with the bigger house dream, it's like financial quicksand. The more you move, the deeper you sink. Think about it. Buying a bigger house doesn't just mean a higher mortgage. It means higher property taxes, higher insurance, higher utility bills. A bigger yard needs more maintenance. A larger house needs more furniture. Even the neighborhood matters. Suddenly, you feel pressure to drive the nicer car, send your kids to private school, keep up appearances. The house isn't just a building anymore. It's a magnet that pulls in more expenses from every corner of your life. And here's the kicker. Most people don't realize this until it's too late. They're staring at their bank account, wondering why their six-figure income feels like peanuts. They blame inflation, blame the economy, blame their boss. But the truth is, sometimes the enemy isn't out there. It's inside the choices we make, like stretching for that dream house before we're ready. Let's pause for a moment and talk about something that often gets misunderstood: assets versus liabilities. It sounds boring, but trust me, this one mental shift can change your financial future. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability takes money out. By that definition, your personal residence, no matter how fancy, isn't really an asset. It's a liability. It eats cash every single month. Sure, it might appreciate in value, but appreciation doesn't pay your grocery bills. Cash flow does. This is where the millionaire myth gets exposed. Society counts everything: your car, your jewelry, your house, toward your net worth. And sure, technically that's true, But if most of your wealth is trapped in things that don't generate income, you're just sitting on fragile wealth. It looks good, but it doesn't work for you. It's like owning a luxury treadmill. You can brag about it, but if it's gathering dust in the corner, it's not helping you get fit. Now, let's connect this to the dream many people secretly have: the dream of retiring early. Enter the FIRE movement. Financial independence, retire early. It's a movement built on one idea. If you save and invest aggressively, you can quit the 9-to-5 grind decades earlier than most people. Sounds incredible, right? But here's where the trap comes in. Too many people think buying a big house is part of this path to freedom. They see it as a solid investment. But here's the irony. That big house often delays or destroys their shot at early retirement. Why? Because it eats up cash that could have gone into index funds, rental properties, or businesses that actually create income. You can't retire on drywall. You retire on dividends, cash flow, and assets that pay you back. Let me give you a scenario. Picture two people, John and Sarah. John buys $1 million home. On paper, he's a millionaire. But every month, he's paying $4,500 on the mortgage, $1,000 on taxes, plus insurance, utilities, and repairs. By the end of the month, his paycheck is gone. He's stuck. Now Sarah takes a different route. She buys a modest home she can comfortably afford. Instead of funneling all her income into a house, she invests in index funds, dividend stocks, and a small rental property. 10 years later, Sarah doesn't live in the fanciest house, but she has freedom. Her assets pay her bills. She has passive income. She could walk away from her job tomorrow if she wanted. Who's the real millionaire here, John or Sarah? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Do you want to look rich, or do you want to be free? And here's another layer most people ignore: liquidity. Liquidity simply means how easily you can access your wealth. Cash is liquid. Stocks are fairly liquid. But your home? Not so much. If you need money, you can't just sell one bathroom or half the roof. You'd have to refinance, take out a loan, or sell the whole thing, which takes time and often adds debt. That's why house wealth is more like wealth on lockdown. You have it, but you can't touch it. It's like owning a gold bar that's locked inside a vault with no key. Technically, it's yours. Practically, it's useless. And this is where financial literacy makes the difference. Most people never learn this in school. Nobody explained that owning assets that don't pay you back is like working overtime to fill a leaky bucket. You pour money in, but it keeps draining out the bottom. Real wealth is about building a bucket that not only holds water, but refills itself through passive income streams, smart investing, and liquid assets. Let's be real, this isn't about bashing home ownership. A home can be wonderful. It gives stability, it can grow in value, it can be passed down to your kids. But when a house becomes your only source of wealth, it's like building a castle on sand. One storm, job loss, medical bills, a market crash, and the whole thing crumbles. This is why so many people in America, even with million-dollar homes, feel broke. They are constantly juggling bills, worried about the next emergency, and living with a silent anxiety that nobody sees. From the outside, it looks like they've won the game. On the inside, they feel like they're losing. And if you're listening to this and thinking, that sounds a little too familiar, don't feel bad. You're not alone. This trap was built by culture, media, and decades of being told that bigger is always better. But here's the empowering part. You don't have to stay stuck. You can choose to define wealth differently. You can choose cash flow over square footage. You can choose freedom over appearances. Because at the end of the day, what's the point of being called a millionaire if you're still stressed about money? What's the point of owning a big home if you can't take a vacation without worrying about credit card debt? What's the point of looking rich when you don't feel free? The truth is simple. Wealth isn't about looking rich. It's about living rich. And living rich means having money that works for you, not just walls that trap you. In the final part of this series, we'll talk about how you can shift from being house rich and cash poor to being truly wealthy. We'll discuss practical steps, mindset changes, and the exact ways you can start building assets that actually set you free. Because freedom isn't measured in square feet, it's measured in choices. And the more financial choices you have, the richer you really are. So far, we've exposed the illusion of being house rich and explained how lifestyle inflation, liabilities, and a lack of liquidity keep people trapped in a cycle that looks glamorous from the outside but feels suffocating on the inside. Now, let's shift gears. Let's talk about how you can break free from this trap and start building real wealth, the kind that actually gives you choices, peace of mind, and freedom. The first step is simple but powerful. Redefine what wealth means to you. Most people have been programmed to believe that wealth equals big houses, luxury cars, and flashy lifestyles. But that's not wealth, that's consumption. Real wealth is not about how much you can show off, it's about how much freedom you can buy. Freedom to wake up when you want, freedom to spend time with your family, freedom to choose work you enjoy rather than work you need. That's the kind of wealth worth chasing. And here's the truth. Freedom doesn't come from a bigger house. It comes from cash flow. It comes from liquid assets that can cover your expenses even if you stopped working tomorrow. So if you want to escape the house-rich, cash-poor trap, you've got to prioritize building streams of income over into practical steps. Step 1. Live below your means. I know, it doesn't sound glamorous, but it's the foundation. The reason so many people get stuck is because they stretch their budget to the maximum. They buy the house they can barely afford, the car that eats half their paycheck, and the lifestyle that leaves no breathing room. The trick is to flip that. Buy the house you need, not the house that feeds your ego. Drive the car that gets you where you need to go, not the one that impresses strangers at a stoplight. Because every dollar you save isn't just a dollar, it's future freedom. Step 2. Build assets that pay you back. This could be dividend stocks, index funds, rental properties, or even a small side business. The point is to own things that generate income while you sleep. Remember the difference between assets and liabilities? Assets feed you, liabilities drain you. Every time you choose an asset over a liability, you're stacking bricks in your wall of financial independence. Step 3. Keep liquidity in mind. You don't want all your money tied up in things you can't touch. Having a big house but no emergency savings is like being a knight in shining armor with no sword. You look strong, but you're defenseless. Keep a healthy emergency fund. Keep some investments liquid. Because life will throw curveballs, and when it does, you don't want to be scrambling to refinance your home just to pay a medical bill. Step 4. Focus on passive income. Active income is what you earn from your job. It stops the moment you stop working. Passive income is the opposite. It keeps coming in even when you're not clocking hours. It could be rental income, dividends, royalties, or automated businesses. Passive income is the true ticket out of the rat race. It's what separates someone who looks wealthy from someone who actually lives wealthy. And here's something most people don't want to admit. Being house rich often blinds you to opportunities. When all your money is tied up in a house, you miss the chance to invest in the stock market when it dips, or to grab that promising business idea, or to buy that rental property that could have generated lifelong income. The house hogs your resources, and you're left watching opportunities slip through your fingers. But if you keep your finances flexible, if you stay liquid, you can jump on those opportunities. And over time, those opportunities multiply your wealth in ways a house never could.
Now, let's talk about mindset, because money is only half the battle. The other half is psychological. Why do so many people chase big houses and fancy lifestyles? Because they're trying to prove something. They're trying to prove to their parents, their neighbors, even to themselves that they've made it. But here's the harsh reality. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. True wealth is quiet. It doesn't need validation. The people with real freedom aren't always the ones you notice. They're not always the ones in the biggest houses. Sometimes they're the ones in the modest homes with fat investment accounts, taking trips when they want, working because they choose to, not because they have to. So the next time you feel pressured to stretch your budget for a bigger home or a flashier car, ask yourself, am I buying this for me? Or am I buying it to impress people who don't even care? That one question can save you decades of financial stress. Here's another practical move. Don't confuse home equity with wealth you can spend. If your house has gone up in value, great,
But unless you sell it or rent it out, that equity is like a trophy on a shelf. It looks nice, but it doesn't pay the bills. Don't let rising home values trick you into thinking you're financially free. Freedom comes from cash flow, not equity. And finally, step 5. Prioritize financial literacy. Learn about money the way you learn a new skill. Read books, watch videos, listen to podcasts. The more you understand how money works, the harder it becomes for society, banks, or culture to trap you in financial illusions. Because here's the truth. Being financially free isn't about luck, and it isn't about having a high-paying job. It's about knowledge. Knowledge that guides your choices, builds your habits, and keeps you from falling into traps like being house rich and cash poor. So let's bring it all together. The house rich, cash poor trap is seductive because it looks like success. But the true measure of wealth is not how big your house is, it's how free you are. Do you have to keep grinding at a job you hate just to pay for those 4 walls? Or can you step away tomorrow and still be fine? That's the real question. At the end of the day, being rich isn't about having $1 million home. It's about having 1 million options. And those options come from liquid assets, passive income, and smart money choices, not from square footage. So if you want to become truly wealthy, focus less on the house that makes you look rich and more on the habits that make you free. Build assets that pay you back, stay liquid, learn about money, and most importantly, chase freedom, not appearances. Because when you walk into a room, nobody cares if your net worth is tied up in drywall. What matters is whether you're living the life you want or whether you're trapped in one you can't afford. And you get to decide which side of that line you want to stand on. Remember this: wealth is not the size of your house. Wealth is the size of your freedom. And once you see that clearly, you'll never fall for the millionaire myth again.